Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to October. This is my birth month, and I am thrilled because I have made another solar return. My born day is coming soon, and in gratitude of that, I would appreciate if everyone would make a purchase from Uncle Ren's Popcorn. The letter U, the letter R, the word popcorn.com. Even if you don't like gourmet popcorn, there are other delicious chocolate treats on there. And even if you don't like those, give them as a gift to someone for my born month gift. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. And now, moving on, I'm going to give gratitude to everyone who already supports this channel through Uncle Ren's Popcorn, through Coach Ren, through Patreon, those who subscribe to the channel, those who hit that like button and they share and hit that bell icon. I appreciate all of you guys. And if you're finding me for the first time, we talk about everything in the 360 degrees of your life. I'm your alchemy coach, Coach Renz, and we talk about your spirituality, your health, your wealth. We talk about your relationships and everything else under the sun, right? So, today's video is a continuation of a previous video that was entitled, "There are many paths to the Creator, but the path is narrow." So we're going to talk about that narrow path today, even though I alluded to it, spoke about it a bit in the previous video. And if you want to have that reference, go back and watch that one and then come back and watch this one. I will throw up a link at the end of this one to that video. So, but before we get there, let's go ahead and break down what that path is. I'm going to tell you by reading to you the different perspectives from the different religious labels, from the Christian label, from the Hindu label, from the Buddhist label, and from the Taoist label, and show how they are all in similarity. They all talk the same talk, teach the same thing. But what makes the path narrow is the fact that people speak and claim this label, but yet they don't live it. And that is the problem. That is why it is difficult. That is why it is hard. It's about living that path. And what we're going to do today is look at a little bit of history of how those things sort of changed. Then we're going to talk about that, the heart and the mind, the connection, and how the ancients looked at it. And then we'll discover how to recognize in ourselves what we need to do in order to make that change, and then how to actually make the change. That's the one thing that many people don't ever do. They don't tell you what you need to do in order to actually make that change. But without further ado, let's go ahead and eliminate any person's thought process that the teachings aren't the same, that the pathways, no matter what you label them, call them, gets you to the same place. So, and this first one, the teaching of Jesus, Yeshua, may not be canonical in all teachings, but as it says, all scriptures are good for study and understanding. So in the dialogue of the Savior, Judas asked Jesus, "How do we find the way?" Jesus answered, by developing love and compassion. Think about that. You have to develop love and compassion. And we're going to talk about another one in a few minutes of why you have to develop this love and compassion, right? Although we are born naturally loving and compassionate, we lose it through our traditions and our teachings and our fears. And we'll break those down later on. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita said, "Those who find the way are those who have love and forgiveness in their heart." You see, you can't find the way without the love and forgiveness. It's not there. If you're not walking in love and forgiveness, then you can't find the way. You are in some other way. But the way of the Hindu is through love and compassion. In the Dhammapada for Buddha, he says, "No one can understand the way unless they have a pure heart." A pure heart meaning that you have used the alchemical formula of putting your heart through the fire, your emotions through the fire, your mind through the fire, and you've removed the impurities, the superfluidities are out of your system in order for it to be a pure heart. It's not 14 karat gold, it's 24 karat gold. It's pure. Able to conduct pure electricity, pure love, pure emotions, a pure heart. And in the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, the perfect man is one whose sins are forgiven. He becomes one with the way. Understand that when your sins are forgiven, there is the idea of repentance. I do not believe that your sins are forgiven by yourself, by the people around you, by anyone, if you continue to live that way, to have your heart uncircumcised. Now, are you ever going to be perfect? No, you will always struggle with something. But the goal is to continue to get into the flow of the way. So the goal is to take that wrong that you do, that wrong way of thinking, that wrong way of living, that wrong way of being, and then say, how can I make it better? And understand that process and then do it. The reason why the path is narrow and many find struggle in it is because they simply just don't do it. They know it. And I know there's this term that when you know better, you do better, but not necessarily true. Because you know better, but you don't necessarily do better. You know not to spend more money than you make, but yet you continue to spend more money than you make because you see things that you want and you see things that other people have and you want it and you know you can't afford it yet. So instead of going out and going through the process of being able to get it without injury to yourself, you go ahead and get it anyway, injure yourself, and then you want to be pulled out of that. You want somebody to save you from it when you put yourself into it. So in order to save yourself, do better with the knowledge that you have. You know that the way is through love and compassion. The way is through understanding how to elevate yourself, purify yourself, get better and better and better and better until you're able to leave this existence. I mean, in the Hindu tradition, they believe in reincarnation to the point where you don't need to reincarnate anymore and you become pure energy, and now you're one. You're in the presence of the Brahma, of the Creator. So in another one, in the Gospel according to Mark, parallels also in Matthew, Luke, and Gospel of Thomas, it has Yeshua saying, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Yet we go to war constantly. Yet we rob, murder, and steal from each other constantly. I saw a video the other day where a man was sitting in church. A lady was, I'm sure it was a Catholic church by the positioning and what he did at the end. But the lady was sitting there, and the man reached into her purse, stole something out of her purse, then got up, went over, dipped his finger into the holy water, and then did the whole, cross deal, that. And I'm thinking, wow, love yourself as you love your neighbors. Steal from her and then ask for blessings on your way out. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, recognizing what brings pleasure and pain to oneself, recognizing what brings pleasure and pain to you, the true yogi, someone who is in union, the word yoga means union, so the yogi is someone who's in union with the way, treats others accordingly, according to how he would want to be treated himself. Thus, he desires happiness for everyone and sorrow for no one, because no one walks around saying that I want sorrow, please give me sorrow. Sorrow is for me, I want more sorrow, please. Please, can I have another? I need another helping of sorrow. But no, for the most part, unless you are deranged in some form or fashion or you have some mental illness, most people want happiness. They want happiness in their life. They want peace in their life. And the Buddha says, seeing himself in others, one who is in a state of higher consciousness feels compassion for all beings and hold only positive thoughts about them. This is in the doctrinal formula. Only one who is in high consciousness. You see, the lower conscious person is walking around holding on to negative things about other people. Only the higher vibration, higher conscious people are looking for what's good about this person, what's good about this situation, what is better about this whole thing that's going on. Not only the low conscious person is saying, well, I'm this and I'm that, and they're not this and they're not that, so they are bad, evil, not good, they are not in the way, and yet you have no idea. Who are you to determine and control where they are in the way and how they are in the way? But only should hold, look, that's a devout Muslim right there. And they're a devout Muslim in the trueness of Islam and the ways of love. That's a devout Christian right there. They are devout in the ways of love in Christianity. They are devout they actually follow the idea of love your neighbor as you would love yourself. They are true followers of that. These Hindus are true followers of letting people live honestly and truly and only seeking out what's good for the other person. Only the high conscious person can do that within any of the categories. And Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching says that nothing but good comes to him who loves others as he loves himself. Nothing but good comes to him who loves others as he loves himself. Because when you are that person that's always loving other people, generally people love to have you around them and loving them. And you generally, the way the universe works, what you put out, what's inside of you is coming on your outside. What's inside of you is showcased on your outside. How you live your life. In a financial example, if you live your life as a person with poor financial habits, then your environment is going to show a person of poor financial habits. You'll see the struggle. You'll see the trials. Now, this is not always, you got to have, because life does happen. So if life is happening to you right now, life is happening. You may have made a bad decision and it's put you in that state, but a person with good financial habits will eventually get out of that state. A person with poor financial habits will maintain that state or get worse. They never leave. It's kind of like when they say that if you took all the wealth of the world and spread it out evenly amongst all people, that give it over a certain amount of time, 5-10 years, that 1% that originally had 90% of the wealth, 10% that has 90% of the wealth, that 10% will have that wealth back again within 10 years simply because of their habits, because of their way of thinking, their actions. So if the person is a person of love, then no matter what happens in their life, they're still going to be a person of love. You can't take that away unless they give it away. Right? So how did we get to this state that we're in today, where we fight amongst each other? Even though your literature, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, whether it's the Tao, the Ching, the Dhammapada, no, regardless of what your literature is, the golden rule, do unto others as you will have others do unto you, regardless of what your literature is. How do we get to a state where we have zero to little respect for other people's ways, pathways of getting to the Creator, of getting to higher consciousness, of elevating themselves, of going through the alchemical process? Well, although I can't, it could be a whole series on different time frames, and we're going to pick one specific time frame where things really began to change and unravel for the world. You see, there was prior a time frame where people of different religions, although had disagreement, they lived amongst each other. They respected one another. They did not cast people out or treat them poorly. They did not say that you are going to determine where they are going in the afterlife based on their religion, but they respected the other person's religion. Prior to 492 AD, it might be 482, but I'm going to stick with 492 right now. Prior to 492 AD, the world, around the Western world, throughout the Eastern world, throughout the Americas, the East Hemisphere, the West Hemisphere, the Northern Hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere, around the world in general, people allowed you to have your religion and thought, if you believe in these gods, and if believing in these gods gets you to your afterlife of being with the gods, then good. We have our way and we get with the gods. And people were allowed to coexist like that. To give you an example, most of us who listen to these videos are pretty much westernized, but we know Eastern philosophies and Eastern religions are growing at a tremendous rate around the world, while some Western religions are decreasing. If not for childbirth rates, all of them would be decreasing drastically. But prior to 492, I'm pretty sure it's 492, correct me if I'm wrong, if the Romans, when the Romans rolled up into Egypt, they had a thing where and so did the Greeks before them and the Persians before them, and we're going to talk about the Persians a little bit later. They had a thing where they found similarities in their gods to your gods. And Hellenization was not just the idea of making the people that Alexander the Great conquered into a Greek, but they found coexistence. They said, here's our God of war, here's your God of war. Oh, they're very similar and they're the same. When the Romans came in, the Romans would say, oh, this is your God. We're going to make a statue of your God and put it in our society in Rome and give honor to your God as well. And then here's our God, and we're going to give honor to, and you will give honor to our God. So there was a system where people respected each other's gods, and you went to temple and worshiped in your way, we went to temple and worshiped in our way, and everybody got along based on that. Now, fights were more so over resources, or one group is enslaving the other group, or dominating the other group, or changing, something like overtaxation. That was usually the reason why revolts and wars and fights began. It generally wasn't over religion. That came later. Now, I could say that this started when the Hebrews came out of Babylon, and that time frame when they said there is only one God and everybody else's God is a false God, and started this contention. But that's not the point that we're going to start out. Even though that would be valid, that's not the point, because their God was still respected by others, and others expected them to respect their God. And to a certain degree they did. But what happened is that the Romans, during the time of Nero, when Jewish revolts were going on wildly around the Roman Empire, and was threatening the cohesion of the Roman Empire, because during this time frame, the Hebrews represented about 10% of the population, and most importantly, they represented a part of the population that was in Egypt, which at that time frame was the breadbasket of Rome. That's where most of the grain was coming from. A lot of the money was coming out of Egypt, and Rome was fearful of a disruption. The Jews had already proven themselves in battle in establishing a state inside of the Roman Empire with the Maccabees. So you can read War of the Jews, the Maccabees, and get an understanding of that. They established that at that time frame, which set up a situation where the Romans were in fear of disruption throughout the Roman Empire. You had long since had Spartacus create a slave revolt that trembled Rome. So now, having a revolt based on this messianic message, Vespasian came in, put down the revolt in Judea, destroyed the temple, because as long as the temple was erected, then all the Jews around the Roman Empire were expecting this warrior Messiah, not a heavenly Messiah, but a warrior Messiah in the flesh, who would rise up in armed battle and defeat the enemy of the Jewish people, which in that time frame would have been the Romans. That's what they were looking for. So Vespasian realized the message was very destructive and disruptive to the Roman Empire. So from Vespasian and through him becoming emperor, Nero being deposed, a few little emperors in between that lasted a couple months, maybe a year. Then finally Vespasian becoming emperor, and then his son Titus, and then on up the Flavian dynasty began and continued. A continuous thing was a concern of this messianic movement, that the Romans realized that no longer can we coexist. We can't coexist with this group inside of our empire, that there's actually contention between us. We can't coexist. They won't respect our gods. We tried respecting theirs, but it didn't work. And we tried to force them to respect ours, but it didn't work. So then the message became what is Christianity today. And this is just history, nothing against anyone's religion. And it changed. And the Romans tried to force it. They tried to persecute it. They tried to get rid of it through brute force. You see, the Romans had that way. We can get rid of it. We can coexist through brute force, and at the same time, we're also going to put puppet regimes in place. And at the same time, we're going to respect your gods and expect you to respect ours. But it wasn't necessarily working out that way for this particular group, for the Hebrews. So something was done. First in 325, first in 318, when Constantine reconnected the empire, from the Eastern and the Western, he had the Edict of Milan to make Christianity legal. But that wasn't enough. In 325, he said, hey, I need y'all to organize this Christianity, because there was already a fight with the Messianic Jews. Now we got Messianic Christians. We need to organize this under the Orthodoxy. And so the religion was organized. But that still wasn't good enough for Rome. Then Rome started realizing by 492 or 482, I gotta get it right, that there's a message here. Turn the other cheek, give unto Caesar what is Caesar. There's a pacifistic message here of having a Messiah, but not a earthly war-fighting Messiah that causes you to bring up arms against Rome. But there's a pacifistic Messiah that says that the kingdom of God is ethereal, not tangible. So, since that's the message, let's put, and we can win. We can bring peace if everybody fell under that. We can bring peace through the religion only. We don't need to put up puppet regimes. We don't need to use forced brutality to get rid of it. What we will use now is forced brutality to make everybody be it. So in 492, when Christianity became the only religion in Rome, now you cannot worship the Greek gods anymore. Now you cannot worship the Roman gods anymore. Now you cannot worship your gods from whatever lands that you are from. Now, where tolerance was there, it is only intolerance. And because of that intolerance, covered with a veil of love and compassion and love your enemies, people began to move away from saying there are many pathways to the Creator. There are many pathways to heaven, to the afterlife, to God, to happiness, to joy, to beauty. There are many pathways. That idea began to leave, and we were only left with the idea of this one way, one way. So when Islam comes up, we must fight them because there's only one way. We must have crusades. There's only one way. When the Gnostic Christians, we must go kill all Gnostics. The Essenes, we must go kill all the Essenes. All of a sudden now, if you do not agree to our orthodoxy, we must kill everybody who does not. So it was brutality. And then if the few times that it wasn't brutality, it was through a false sense of love. When we had different slave trades or different colonization, it was, we're bringing the love. We're bringing the love now. Beat you down, beat you down, beat you down. If you don't convert over and do what we tell you to do. Of course, now this is backed by other emotions, backed by other fears, and it's just used as a veil to get their message across. It's like, what we really want are your resources, what we really want is your labor, but we're going to veil it in the disguise of love of God and divine manifestation. So the tolerance level began to leave, was gone, starting from the Roman Empire making Christianity the official religion, and brutality followed. And then as we move out of dictatorships, you see, during all those dictatorships and kings and emperors and all that time frame, there was so much fear. I could kill you if you don't agree. But now we've moved into a state of democracies. Phone ringing, give it a pause. Waiting for democracies and things of that nature. We're going to keep going. We can't kill you for it, but the intolerance has already been established. It's already here. It's very prevalent. But I believe we're moving into a state of tolerance. We're moving into a new age, the age of Aquarius, if you will. You know, the 13 Bactune calendars have reset, and we're back to the first Bactune. And in the first Bactune was a golden age. So we're moving back to that time frame where people are developing tolerance. And the only way that we can continue to do that is through the heart. And that heart connection through the mind. In the previous video, I talked about how you have a gut brain, a heart brain, and a brain. And that there are synaptics that work in all three that are very similar. This one is ruled by logic and reason. This one is ruled by your emotions, while your gut is just pure and connected. So in the heart and the mind, this is not new age stuff. This is things that's been known. The Egyptians and the Aztecs and others, when they mummified bodies or took bodies to burial or performed sacrifices, they did not pull out the brain as your state of consciousness that connects. They did not pull out your gut. They pulled out your heart. They recognized the heart is where your consciousness was dwelling. That was their thought. Your heart is here. We don't know exactly where it is. I believe it's all over. It's everything, right? But we're still trying to figure out where the consciousness resides within the framework of the body. but they believed it was in the heart. That judgments were made based on the heart. Decisions were made based on the heart. Because of that, those decisions, those things, the heart was kept, put in jars, used for sacrifices, given to the gods as a sign, as a symbol, or as the hearts were put in the jars, so that because you needed the heart to go across. In the ancient Egyptian afterlife saga, because it's a saga, you got to know your spells, and it's a saga. Lakes of fire, crocodiles, serpents, all kind of stuff, and finally your heart is weighed against the feather of Ma'at to see if you did not, and then you go through the 42 confessions of Ma'at. And if your heart is heavier than the feather, then it was devoured by the crocodile god. And although Horus may come and advocate for you, and then you go on to cross the river with Osiris, or Asar, whichever name you want to go by, and you go and live in the afterlife with the gods. The heart was the issue. This is why your books talk about circumcisions of the heart, and you have to be loving and compassionate, and that you have to love others as you would love yourself, that the yogi, the one who is in union. Union meaning in union with the way, in union with the universe, in union with energy, with flow. That they recognize, I'm not going to treat you poorly because I don't want to be treated poorly. I only want you to have joy and happiness, so I'm going to root for you, cheer for you. I'm not trying to be a crab in a bucket and pull you down. Nor am I trying to sit in a pool of water and let the heat boil upon me slow until I die. I'm not a frog in a pot. But I want you to live your life blissfully because I desire to live my life in the same format. This is the thought process. All those religions are similar. The confusion comes because of us and our bias. Us and our bias. You know, in 529 BCE, before the Common Era, when Cyrus conquered the Persian, took over Babylon. The interesting thing about that is that Cyrus worshipped Marduk at the time. And the people of Babylon, the priests, the ones in charge, they worship Marduk. But their previous king, which whose name I forget right now, he has strayed away from worshiping Marduk and started worshiping the goddess Sin. Well, while worshiping the goddess Sin, he ignored the kingdom and left his son in charge, who was inept. And when Cyrus came knocking at the door, they opened the gates. Very few warred against him. He took the city with ease. In taking the city with ease and worshiping Marduk, there were Hebrews in the city in Babylon. This is the 70-year captivity, according to the Hebraic story. Cyrus, at this point, as I said, worshiped Marduk, recognized the Hebrew god as El. To Cyrus, who worshiping Marduk, El is Marduk's brother. Different time frames of the Sumerian story, this Persian story. Marduk is Enki, so Enki is in El is Enlil, so they are brothers. Other times Marduk is Enki's son, so that still would make Marduk Enki's nephew. So they are related either way. Cyrus recognizing this, saying the ways I should be as far as my worship of Marduk is that this is my brother. They worship my brother. My God and their God are brothers. They're family. So Marduk releases a clutch of them, a portion of them. Not all left. Not all left. The Sumerian steles show that not all left. So he recognized that. And in the ways of worshiping Marduk, when it's time for them to leave, you give gifts because you're giving gifts to their God. In the same way that you give gifts to your God, you give gifts to their God. So he gave them gifts as they departed. The people gave gifts as they departed because they recognized that they were brothers. They are the same. There are different pathways to the same eternity, to the same afterlife. So it was Cyrus participating in his worship that allowed for him to free and let them go. Now, I know, because of our bias, because we have to make things how we want things to be, so that they can make sense to us, there are those who say that no, Cyrus did that because the Hebrew God made him do it. A flaw. If that was the sole if that was the idea, where is the after effect? Where is Cyrus converting over to their religion? Where is Cyrus converting the Persian Empire over to their religion? Why wait for the Romans to do it brutally when it could have been done through peace and love at that moment? Why? Some will argue that, well, some people probably did. They saw what Cyrus did for them. But Cyrus did that based on his belief in his God. So it's possible, as I asked the question in the previous video, is it possible? Is it possible that the all-present, all-knowing, all-powerful God be Marduk or Enlil or Enki, or come in the form of any of these beings to someone else, to Cyrus? Could he have provided a pathway to him through his worship of Marduk, his understanding of his worship through Marduk, the Hammurabi Code, which give him his laws that are came out before the Ten Commandments, but are very similar to the Ten Commandments? Could he have done his work through Cyrus as Marduk, but not as El, Enlil, Enki, or Jehovah, whomever? Just in the same way that Mahatma Gandhi, Hindu, freed his people, did some things in his past, but then worked on peace and freeing his people, freeing the people of India. Could he have done that? Could God have embodied himself to him in Krishna, in the Brahma, to enlighten him to the point where he went from the military into being someone who is now remembered more for bringing peace, bringing the Indian people out of an oppressive state? Could he be remembered? Could he have been worked through God through that way, through Krishna, through whomever his personal deity was that gave him the connection to the Brahman tree, to source, to energy, to everything, to the all? Is it possible? Or are you so narrow that you can't see it? That you can't see how an infinite being, an intelligent designer, a mind that is beyond your conception, my conception, could have possibly made many paths? But we block these because of our biases. And we're going to go through a little bit here. I know this video is very, very long. Go through some of the aspect of the biases. These biases can be summed up in the same way we look at the chakra system as far as what blocks your chakras. Our chakras are blocked by fear, by shame, by guilt, blocked by the loss of love or comfort or things that we have, blocked by the lies that we tell ourselves, blocked by our disconnection that we feel to everyone else, and blocked by our earthly attachment, holding on to things. If you think about it, in every reason, true reason, that a person would say that the infinite intelligence, the all-powerful, omnipresent, was only in India, was only in Tibet, was only in Israel, was only in Africa, was only in the Americas, was only in the Australian Aborigine, was only there, only present there for them at that time frame, and the world missed it. The world missed it. If you missed the sky people coming down for the Aboriginals, then you missed it. You missed it. If you missed Quetzalcoatl, you missed it. If you miss Yeshua, you missed it. If you miss Abraham, you missed it. If you miss Muhammad, you missed it. If you miss Krishna, you missed it. Only through these ideas of shame, fear. Fear is the primary. Fear. Most of us are in religions due to some level of fear somewhere in our history. But fear. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, then the Muslim might be right, and then I go to Muslim hell. If I'm wrong, then the Jew may be right, and I just cease to exist and go into Sheol. If I'm wrong, then I've missed the sky people. If I'm wrong. But I can't be wrong. I can't be wrong. My way is the way. I gotta satisfy my karmic debt. I have to satisfy that karmic debt. I have to keep living life after life. And I got to come back as an insect because I lived so poorly in the previous life. I was so horrible in the previous life. And the reason why these people are rich and they're famous and they're doing great and they have this wonderful looking life is because they've been satisfying their karmic debt. Or because this person, he became a monk and they're sitting there and they're sitting in peace. Then they satisfy their karmic debt. But I'm living poor, poverty, poor health, poor all these things. It must be my karmic debt from a previous life. And hopefully I won't have to keep living this. So my way got to be right. So your way of just believing in your God, that's not right. Meditate, that's not right. Sky peep, nope. Praying 5 times, facing Mecca, that's not right. Can't be right. My way has to be right. Only out of fear or shame. I got to keep you down because I'm ashamed of what my ancestors have done. Or I'm ashamed of what I've been doing. Or I feel guilty about the things that I've been doing. I don't want to feel any loss. I don't want to lose anything. I don't want to lose my prestige. I don't want to lose my power. I don't want to lose my connection. The fact that you would lose your connection with the Creator because somebody else may have a pathway to the Creator is kind of like a child looking at the mother and saying that you can't love, I can't accept my brother, I can't accept my sister, because if I do, then I might lose the love of my mother. Not that your mother could love you and love him and love her. Not that your father can love him and love her and love you. Not that that the parent can't love multiple children. You may love them different ways, but love is still love, and love multiple children. But you feel like you may lose that connection with your father, your mother, simply because they love other children. You lose your friend because your friend has friends with other friends. Your friend is friends with other friends, so I can't allow you to have friends, because if you have other friends, then I may lose you as a friend. So I gotta disparage your other friends. I gotta disparage my brothers and sisters. I gotta disparage this other country. I can't be an ally to this country, because then that country, I might lose them. If I let England be an ally to Spain, or be an ally to Turkey, or be an ally to Syria, then I can't be, we can't allow that, because then we may lose our connection with being allies to England. So we can't keep that going on. That's how that sounds when you have that fear of loss. Fear of loss going on. Or you telling lies to yourself, I'm devout, but yet you don't follow the practice of love thy brother as you would love yourself, love your neighbor as you would love yourself, treat others how you would like to be treated. You don't follow those tenets, but yet you speak that you do, that you believe in, you give yourself that title, but yet you don't fulfill it. You don't fulfill it. You can't see the vision of how we're all connected. Everything in this universe is in oneness. Everything is energy. Everything flows. Nothing dies. Nothing ceases to exist. It only transmutes from one thing to the next thing. It continues to live on. How our consciousness does it is still a mystery. It's still something we're looking to solve. We have created different mysteries and different religions and different sayings all throughout time and history. The volcano erupt. The God on the mountain is angry. Let's feed it some people. Let's feed it some crops. The drought didn't come. Oh my gosh, let's do this, let's do that. There's always something that we have created in order to try to explain the connections of the universe, our universality. And because we keep creating it, we lose our crown, because we're holding on to this earthly attachment, this material world, this planet, and we're holding on to our existence here so tightly. It's like the saying says in the Marine Corps, everybody wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. Because we're holding on so tightly to what we have in the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. Is you have to let go and release your desires. Release your wants, actually. Release your wants. And you have to let go. Breathing in the prana, but the release is nirvana. You have to let go. But we don't want to do these things. And because we don't, we create biases against other people. We can't create biases against the possibility. We're not back in that golden era, in that time frame where people said, I'm going to live and let live. And that's how you get closer to the Creator, then that's how you get there. We're going back to that, but we're not there yet. We've lost a lot of that over these last, 2,000 years. A lot of that has been lost. But the age of Aquarius is upon us. The way that we can recognize this is to recognize the law of correspondence, and how whatever's going on our inside is exemplified on our outside. As above, so below, as within, so without. So whatever you see, whatever you're doing, whatever you have in your life, then it's what's inside you. If you're one-sided, if you're biased, if you're mean, and if you can't be in conversation with someone who has a different belief, and y'all not get into arguments, fuss, fight, if your emotions don't get all riled up to the point of anger and frustration, then you have that on the inside. It was on the inside of you before they brought it from the outside. It was already present. You already had a made-up mind. You had already condemned them to hell. And in that, it doesn't matter what information is brought to you, what enlightenment is given to you. You could have a dream and you can be enlightened. You could have a person coming to you and be enlightened. You could be watching a tree outside and be enlightened. You could read a book and be enlightened. You can study actually other traditions, religions, and be enlightened. But yet, if you cannot do that, then that's on the inside. If you read that with a foregone thought that I'm going to read this Upanishad, but I know it's wrong. I'm going to read this Bible, but I know it's wrong. I'm going to read this Quran, but I know it's wrong. I'm going to read the Torah, but I know it's wrong. I'm going to read the Sumerian text, but I know it's wrong. If you've already come into it not saying, I'm going to read it and I want to see what I can gain from it. How did these people connect with the divine? How did they raise their alchemical levels to the point where they are connected to the divine? How did they raise their kundalini? How did they rotate their chakras? How did they energize themselves? How did they use their thoughts and their actions to create their reality? How did they do that? And what can I gain from it? If I can gain something from it, if I can't, then I'll move on and see what I can gain something from. The wisest person knows that however much they know, it really shows them how much they don't know. That you're always the student, even when you think you're the master. Even if somebody calls you the master, you're still the student. We can recognize this by seeing what's on our outside, seeing what our precepts, our thoughts already are. What are your thoughts already? What are the actions that you take already? Because that look outside yourself and you'll see your reality. Sit inside yourself in meditation and you'll see your inner reality. And when you do that, if you can't see beyond where you are, if you're not open to more, then your vibration is actually low. If you think you are the know-it-all, be-it-all, your vibration is low. The Tao says that the way that can already be named, the way that is named is no longer the way. The God that can be named is no longer God. The box that God is in is no longer God. So if you're already there, if that's where you are, if that's where you live, that's where you dwell, then your vibration is low. Which means that higher level of consciousness, you're not there. You're not reaching that. You're here. And if you need to be here for a minute, be here for a minute. But at some point, you have to continue on this journey. Continue on this journey of enlightenment. And how do we change that? How do we continue? How do we raise our vibration? Raising your vibration is really, that's what the law of attraction is really about, is raising your vibration. When you look at your environment leads you to the people that you're around. The people you're around leads you to the activities that you do. The activities you do lead you to the thoughts that you have, and your thoughts lead you to your reality. So the first thing we should do is change our environment. Change the environment. Stop looking at the negativity of the news all the time. Stop looking at with scorn with your brother as they go inside their mosque, their temple, their church, their whatever they go into the woods. If they hugging trees, they hugging trees. At least the tree is getting some love energy. It'll help it grow. They're getting some love energy back. I'm sure the tree appreciates it. But look at your environment. Look at the people you're around. If everybody around you looks like you, act like you, thinks like you, then you will never grow to anything beyond what those people are. It's kind of like the saying that says, if there are 9 broke people, if you're around 9 broke people, you're about to be number 10. If you're around 9 races, you're about to be number 10 races. If you're surround yourself with people who are hell bent on saying that everybody is going to hell and we the only ones going to heaven. I told you guys in one video, I used to know a young lady and her husband. They went to this church in Hawaii. They got stationed in Hawaii. They went there and they were convinced that this church, that only the people at that church is going to heaven. Only the Christians at that church. Now the rest of you Christians, y'all going to hell. Because only the ones at that church is going to heaven. In Hawaii. That one. And there were many other things that they had that were different from mainstream Christianity or even other denominations and types of Christianity, but that was their thing. That's what they said. And if those are the only people you're around, then the activities you perform they're only going to be that. And you're going to continue to perform in those activities. So you got to change your environment, change the people you're around, so that you can change your activities. And the more and more you change your activities, then your thoughts begin to change. When you learn to study, when you go and you study different books, get different understandings. When you grab a book like the one that I read from today, this one, and you start to realize that, oh wait, these guys, these people, these writings were all done at different time frames, but in a similar geographical area, but they all have a lot of similarities. They all think of the Creator in the same way. Maybe those similarities is something I should pay attention to. Maybe I shouldn't be so narrow-minded. Oh, there are writings that are outside of the canon of the Torah, the canon of the Christian Bible, the canon of the Quran, the canon of the Bhagavad Gita. Let me read some of these other things and see let me see what others who are free thinkers have said that are combined. Let me read some study and listen to some Alan Watts, who is looking at Western and Eastern and melding them and getting an understanding of the connection between them. Let me read some of this stuff. Let me read the Stoic philosophies of Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. Let me get some of that. Let me go and study the natural effect and the stories of Ifa, so that I have a different thought process than the one I currently have. Let me do more and get my thoughts open to what the Creator may have for me, so that I can journey on my path, get into my reality. So it's change those environments. And lastly, your chakras. All of this is in the heart. All of this is as it says in the Christian Bible, a circumcision of the heart, a renewing of the mind daily. Now, what's interesting in that is that from your base chakra to your heart chakra, it's a straight line. But once you get to your heart, you got to take a 90-degree turn. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Treat other people how you want to be treated. The true yogi who is in union, treat others, knows that they don't want pain and want pleasure, so they treat others the same way. Circumcision of the heart is a change, a 90-degree change, a flip of the heart. You can 90 degree or 180 degrees, but it's not 360 because that takes you back to where you started. But a 180 degree change in your heart, so that then your speech can change, so that then your vision, your third eye, your pineal gland will change. And when that changes and you start to see the universality, the oneness of all things, the flow of the universe, and you start to get in there like water, and you just flow and be like water. You get into the cracks and the crevices. You start to see things differently, not just from who told you, but you begin to see like the historical indexing of it all. You see the cultural indexing of it all. And you start understanding the politics around it all. And then from that, you're able to weed out what those fearmongers, what those shameful people, those guilty people, what those people who are fearing loss of love and possessions, those people who are lying to themselves and lying to you, those people who have no vision and don't think that we are connected and try to create disconnection, those people who are holding on to this existence so tight that they can't see beyond this understanding. When you open that up, you start to see that vision, then your true crown opens. We like to call each other kings and queens, but that's when your true crown is open. That's when you're truly wearing it. Because then you don't look at your brother and say, how can I separate myself from you? How can I find what's wrong with you? How can I find a problem with you? How can I blame you for your ancestors? How can I blame you for my current condition when I know that the majority of it is because of me? How can I blame you, look at you, persecute you, oppress you? How can I find some reason to not be walking in love of my brother, but to walk in hate and fulfill my hateful understanding? That is when you are wearing your crown, when you can release all of that. And you can say, that's my brother, and we are in flow. And for even the things that they are not ready for, prepared for, even for the things that they are not ready to accept, that is still my brother, that is still my sister. We are in flow. They are on their own journey, their own path, and however the divine creator, however universal knowledge, however the all moves them closer to the all, I'm accepting of that. And if I can help them in any way to get there, I'll help them, as long as it doesn't cause me to get out of my path. I can walk with you, but only for a while. That's when we're doing that, when we open our chakras, meaning we open our consciousness up for universal mind, for the all to truly dwell within us. Then we can have that world peace. Then we can stop hunger. Then we can stop wars. Then we can have, as all of them have said, the kingdom of God that is all around us and inside of us. So y'all have a great day. This video has been way long. I appreciate anybody who stayed this long. Oh my gosh. But you guys are wonderful. You're great. And remember, this is my born month. So make a purchase from Uncle Ren's Popcorn, urpopcorn.com. That would be a wonderful birthday present to me. Thank you very much. Great day. Remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.